Hi, everybody. This is Robert Feldman with Wiles Insurance on Jessica Fury podcast. Every Mondays, tune in across all platforms.
Good morning, everyone. I have to say good morning because my audience knows how I am in the morning. So I'm in the recording studio in the morning, believe it or not. I am with Robert Feldman today. He is coming into the studio space. He's joining me today on the podcast. Robert Feldman has been in the insurance business for 25 years. He is the CEO of Wiles Insurance. And you guys are going to get a little bit of his business with barbecuing. Robert, welcome to the podcast.
Ah, thank you. This is an honor to be here.
There's coffee, there's lights and music and
the
people.
bright lights. It's a great place, great studio.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. The honor's mine.
Yeah, I want to start right off the bat because you have such a cool personality that when I was getting ready before we started recording, I was just like connecting to something that we were sharing, but you have like this very enthusiastic.
Yeah, I can move a crowd.
Super connective.
Yeah.
And you were saying, I thought you were from Texas, and I was like, oh wow, I could see how his personality doesn't seem like very LA because I'm from New York. So people know that I'm not an LA person.
Yeah,
but I've adapted from being out here for 14 years. So where do you get that from? Like, is it something from a childhood? Like, where do you get that? I don't know.
I think that the deep voice kind of throws it a little bit. When you have a very deep voice, I think it can be calming, but also when you're really kind of moving forward and talking to people, you connect. Everyone wants to hear your voice. Everyone wants to hear you talk. And with all the things that are going on in our world right now, obviously in real estate and with insurance, you know, it's launching new things and being able to build. That's kind of been my mantra for the 25 years, and it just allows me to really do things. So I guess it's a perfect fit with my personality. So being able to really step forward, you know, like obviously we met obviously speaking at a speaking event. That was a barbecue event. It's kind of fun to do a lunch and learn, and doing a lot of great things and just really being able to reach out and talk. You know, I think it's the most important thing, especially in this current market for insurance, is really getting out in front, and that's why I'm honored to be here today.
What did you do as a kid? Like, what did you do as a kid to keep yourself like on your free time? What was something that you did
I was the kid that grew up. I was the sport. I went from sport to sport to sport. So when I was growing up, I had 2 to 3 coaches, and basically would overlap. I think my mom loved it because of being kind of high strung. You know, I don't think anyone doubts that I'm ADHD, and I always say I add the OCD part of it as part of this, how I am, because I'm neurotic about being perfect about it. But I would go, sports was the big thing. It was always a really big thing for me. Playing through into high school and a little bit into college was just a great time playing football. You know, it was a great part of my life, I would jokingly say. And it kind of set the stage, you know, because a lot of it, I think when you talk about it's team building. I think a lot of us, you know, that's a great thing about sports is in most sports you have team building, and you learning how to work with and be able to, you know, in essence, play a sport with somebody and doing things. So I think that's a lot of where my background or my mantra, as they would say, comes from.
Cool. What type of sports?
Across the board, mostly football. Played football. Okay. This was a lot of fun.
Okay, I could see that. I don't know a lot of the positions, but
and I miss it. I miss it to this day. And people think I'm crazy when I say it because a lot of people that are my age, not to date myself, you know, played football and they're all walking wounded, and we all have that. But if you talk to them to a T, everyone would still say they would go back and do it in a minute.
That's cool. I was watching the Tom Brady roast on Netflix.
Oh my goodness, that was
and
hysterical.
I was like, it was hysterical. But the thing is, I had to ask 3 of my guy friends at the gym. I'm like, who are these people? I have no idea who these people are. Who's Bill Belichick and this other guy? And I had to ask.
Did you know who Gronk was?
No, I don't know.
That's the one I would say, Jessica, everyone has a great time with because Gronk is a very good looking guy.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you don't know who he is, that's usually the fun. And the funny part of that roast was Nikki Glaser when she went after Gronk.
Yeah.
And it was pretty funny to hear her take on him on not knowing what cryptocurrency was.
Oh yeah.
And the part of the roast.
Yeah.
But that was a great roast. But it's kind of funny. And I think Taylor Swift kind of helped that too. With all the right now she's dating, you know, Travis Kelce, and obviously there was NFL said something ridiculous like They went up 30 or 40% in fan participation just off of.
Oh, wow.
I mean, just the whole thing is just pretty crazy.
Yeah.
How do I do that for insurance?
But like for football, I just don't know the people. But I was like, who are these people? Like I had no idea.
Funny.
So
that's great.
But after you finished like high school and you went to whether you went to college and stuff.
Yep.
Where did you start to shift that you wanted to be in real estate, in home insurance? Like, what was the shift that you had or the connection?
It was in my late 20s. I actually had a really good. It was an interesting story. It was a confidant. It was my father-in-law, and he did a really interesting thing. It was kind of like, God, being young and so arrogant about where I was. I was an outside sales rep for a big steel company in my late 20s, thinking that I had the world at that time. And it wasn't even my father-in-law at the time. I wasn't even married. And it was just someone I was dating at the time who's now my wife. And her father-in-law, my father-in-law, I should say, was talking about why I should be in the insurance world. And I would always tease about, now that's like beneath me. I'm doing major sales for a steel company, and company car and expense account and all these things. Mm-hmm. And he did a really kind of, I'd almost say like a total mind changer. When you have those mentors in your life where kind of people help you turn directions. And he really talked me through why working for somebody versus building something on my own, why it was better to be building something on my own. And it kind of changed me into it. I went in this direction, and I've always been very creative with the insurance companies. Before this new venture we launched for Wows to fix insurance in California, I was a broker for almost 25 years, part of it. I was the one that would always help insurance companies come into California. I have a lot of regulatory friends. I work with different state and local regulatory things. I would work as senior executives of multiple and different insurance carriers. And I was always the really handy Southern tracker. I'd almost make it like old-fashioned Western tracker. So they wanted information, I could help them get to the spots. I've been really focusing on fire really over the last 10 or 15 years. I felt like I was the boy that was crying wolf. I saw all the things coming, and I kept watching it as it would continue to spiral, and was warning insurance companies and warning different places that we have to make change. And that's kind of neat about the Wows part of it. We'll talk about probably in a little bit, is that's going to affect change. We're going to change how insurance works in California for properties.
What makes California, or why is California such a, I don't want to say precarious, I guess like almost like it gets dinged. Like lately we're being like almost like dinged for things. Like, when I moved to California 14 years ago, I came here for a whole other venture, which you guys will just have to tune into that episode that I did on someone's podcast. But, it's really like changed over even my understanding through like the last 14 years and now being in real estate. So I have so much more involvement. And why is that?
You're talking about from the insurance side of it, or do you want to talk about
from the homes?
The homes.
From a home,
Well, the problem is, and I love this to quote different quotes. I'm a big quote person. The insurance industry has been doing Einstein's definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So,
which is
meaning how they're pricing, how they're covering homes in California, and really keying in on the wrong analytics, what causes fires, how are you profitable? I mean, insurance companies right now have been losing money for really the last 5 to 10 years in California. And so when you look at that part of it, how it's structured is where the problem is.
What would be the difference of doing something that's the definition of insanity or doing something and almost having a business and you're like, okay, so this works. Yeah. Like, we follow 1, 2, and 3 and we know this works. We have room to adjust, but it works. So what is the difference between those two?
Great example. Insurance policy should be fully transferable. The program we launched for Wows will be the first policy in the history of California where a seller in your world, you have a listing, the insurance should be transferable to a buyer.
So the insurance that me as a homeowner have should be transferable to the buyer.
Yeah.
Is that going on right now?
No.
Got it.
It takes away a lot of fluctuations. Insurance is really based on a pooling, if you really think about the true definition of insurance, is a pooling of people's money to pay claims.
So
when you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so that leads into why there's problems in California.
Okay, let's say I am a homeowner.
Yep.
And me and my husband, let's just, for example's sake, let's say I make $1 million a year. My husband makes $10 million a year.
Yep.
So it's easy for us to afford the insurance that we have. And you know what? That's probably not the best example. And I'm scaling up for a reason, guys. And we sell our house to someone who, one, can't afford that, if they're buying the house, if they're buying the house, they can afford it, whether they're doing financing or cash. But let's say that they look at what we're paying for our insurance, and they're like, we can't afford to pay that much in insurance, even though we do well, the people that we're selling to, but we can't afford that. So of course we don't want, I just want to finish. Of course we don't want to take that over. Or they're saying to themselves, well, we don't want to take over someone else's insurance. We don't know you. We don't know you. And most times people don't disclose. A lot of times you may not know who the person is, and they don't want to take over someone else's policy or expense.
Yep. Well, in California right now, insurance carriers, you've probably seen in the news, are pulling out and non-renewing. So every consumer basically in California, I don't care if it's Bakersfield, I don't care if it's Shasta, I don't care if it's Rancho Santa Fe or Malibu, is going through one of two things. They're going through non-renewals, meaning being canceled. State Farm, as an example, is canceling 30,000 homes across California.
Can you give me a percentage of that? Well, 30,000 homes across California.
Across California. So I'll use Pacific Palisades as a great example.
Okay.
Pacific Palisades, they're canceling 1,626 homes.
Why do you go to the Palisades? I live in the Palisades, and I've told you that. Yeah. What is it about the Palisades?
The Palisades was an example to use because it gives you an example. The 1,626 homes that State Farm's canceling is 69% of the total homes in California.
What about Malibu?
Malibu's going to be in the same range.
In the same range.
Yep. So you're seeing areas that were considered fire zone areas across California. It's not a 30,000 evenly spread, as an example. I'm sure Reseda is going to have no non-renewals when there's no fire risks. So this is a major problem. Why you need somebody to have the ability, it doesn't require the policy to be transferred, but why you want to have the ability to transfer is right now there's almost a borderline desperation to get insurance. You've seen many times in your world as a realtor, the problems. I mean, you and I could probably talk about horror stories of trying to close escrows right now with people, not being able to get insurance, or a rate that is so egregious that it blows the deal up. So why not have something where you have it built as an insurance policy to where a buyer can assume it, where it's a great rate compared to the market?
Okay, so guys, Robert came to the agency and he did a meeting with like a lunch and learn. And
that's the fun barbecue stuff.
Going back to the example that I was setting with this like very wealthy family that was transferring their insurance, he mentioned that there was an NBA basketball player, and he said that the NBA basketball player was paying $1 million a year in home insurance.
The insurance on larger homes in California right now are based on what's called total insurance value. So if you take your coverages, the structure, rebuild, and the personal property, it's every one of you out there right now have a policy that you get. Most people don't look at it. I get in trouble for it. I'm in insurance. I don't look at mine probably as often as I should. It's all of the coverages. If you add it all up, that's what's called total insurance value. So insurance companies, when I was in London 2 weeks ago, that's really with the reinsurance companies, what they're looking at. And reinsurance companies are the ones that support the insurance companies across the nation. So they're looking at total insurance value. Well, they're doing it based on a percentage. So if you have a 6,000 square foot house, or even a 4,000 square foot house,
or 1,000,
yeah, it's all based on what's the total cost. Rebuild costs are not going down. We know that. We're seeing sections of California now going over 1,000 a square foot. And I have to joke around. There was a part of my life I was wondering if I was going to be a contractor. And I have to say, when I'm starting to see some of the rebuild costs, going towards 2,000 a square foot in sections of California, makes me wonder, man, did I make a mistake and not be a contractor at this point? So what happens is, if you have that total insurance value and it becomes a percentage, it gets pretty scary. So when homes that are really over about 5,000 square feet in California, the new WOWS program we launched is to help solve that problem, because they're getting these high percentages. And then in that example you gave, it was a $20 million total insurance. Their renewal was 5%. That was $1 million renewal.
Yeah. And I want to get like really micro on the specific example of that.
Yeah.
So this professional athlete, he came to you or your company and he said, I'm paying $1 million a year. Now,
at that point, they got $1 million renewal. It was at that point. So they actually took the renewal temporarily, and they just moved into the WOWS program, which is going to take them down to about $300,000 as an example.
Okay. So I want two examples, and one of them you just answered. What was the shift that went on that he then paid $1 million to $300,000? And can you give an example for someone who's, most people are not paying that amount or even making that amount, but just to finish that, I think that the people that are paying, let's just say they live in $1 million home.
Yeah.
Can you give an example, two examples with that?
Absolutely. The $1 million home right now, let's use an example of a 3,000 square foot house. Okay, in a lot of areas is $1 million house. It depends. Obviously, if you're on the beach in Malibu, that might be a $20 million house. But if you're in different sections, it's roughly $1 million to say 3,000 square foot house. Well, we know that the rebuild costs are at least $400 to $500 a square foot. Easy. Some areas are a lot higher than that, but I'll say at the minimum.
Palisades is between $1,400 and $2,400 right now.
So if I were using that example, you have some really interesting situations, because that 3,000 square foot house means that it needs, in essence, 2,000 a square foot. You're going to be running at $6 million rebuild. So think about how scary that is. First of all, you mentioned the Palisades, and there's 1,500 to 2,000 square feet per square foot. You can go to some areas where it's only 500 a square foot. Making sure you're insured to value is probably what the number one thing I would say to everybody out there right now listening needs to make sure happens. There's a lot of times it's not good to find out that you're underinsured and after a fire burns your house. And that's a really scary part of what's going on. But in the example of that, if you get into the total cost of insurance, the larger homes, the homes that are the rebuild, not the square feet, but the rebuild, once it approaches over $4 million, there's a vacuum right now of there's no insurance carriers that are really writing them other than the higher percentages. Why we launched this new program is to really change how insurance works. We need to do it whether it's a 5,000 square foot house or a 2,000 square foot house. The 2,000 square foot houses, I would jokingly say to everyone out there, we've helped safeguard that. I've helped bring in multiple carriers that are doing it right now. There's a lot of you out there that are going to be on what's called the California Fair Plan. That's a whole podcast by itself to talk about. And if you are, that's an option, but everyone needs to realize that's just one of the options. That every home in California, I should say the 99.99% of the homes, have an option right now. And that's incredible. We've worked really hard at WOWS to make sure we bring carriers in and launch a new program to make sure there are options.
So you are a wholesaler.
Yep.
And you
appoint insurance brokers to sell our WOWS program.
How many current retail, I'll just use the word for example, what is the number of insurance companies currently that are active in California that are not leaving?
There's not really a number. And
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Because there's one company, so I don't get myself in trouble, has internal underwriting where they say they're active in California writing, but they limited the brokers in California to write 5 policies a month.
Oh, okay.
So, but they'll still, if you look at the Department of Insurance, that's considered an active company. Well, this company's a pretty large company, writing 5 homes a month. So you can check a box and say you're active. So there's not a real true number. The problem is a lot of carriers are pulling out right now. State Farm was an example. Allstate's in a shutdown. Farmers is in a limited share right now. So the big names that you're seeing, and you're seeing carriers pull back. And so that's what, and it's again, really built on a wrong, that's why I use the comment of Einstein's theory of insanity. It's the insurance community has been pushed into a corner of doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's what needs to change. Proximity or spread of risk, believe it or not, is the number one key component. Not a fire score, not a fire risk. We do fire insurance scoring all the time. Insurance is different than real estate. We were joking around about that prior to the show. And I would jokingly say, when I was in London working with these reinsurance companies, and it's incredible when you're working with these big companies and you're presenting a new product, and when they're giving you capacity and they're telling you it's in the billions we're talking about at this point. When I went there, and it was interesting, they don't want to be in California. So it was one of the craziest parts when I landed in London. You have to have a reinsurance broker. And the reinsurance broker, mine is a company called CJ Coleman. They're incredible. I land there and they're basically telling us no one's going to want to talk to us. But they set up all these great meetings. And we had a great time. With the new concept, flipped every one of them I met with to bring reinsurance into California.
What do you think it was that flipped it?
Really structuring how the new structure of how to change policies in California and how to really do it. It's again getting away from doing the same thing over and over again, and by simply making some basic modifications, we're able to really change. What's great for everyone out there right now is you, as I mentioned to you earlier, we are in some of the larger homes over that 4 million mark, but there are numerous companies, which is exciting, that I work with and talk to that are watching us do this now. Because when this continues to process to work, they're going to mimic the same things. And that's going to help bring down pricing for insurance in California.
Can you share what the California Fair Plan is?
California Fair Plan was built originally in the early 1960s. It was actually built, there's a lot of arguments of why it was built, but it was really built in and around the Watts riots.
Wow.
So it was built because insurance carriers were not working with inner cities. And so it was built as a policy of last resort. It is basically a fire policy. There's some other perils that they cover, but it's a fire insurance policy. It doesn't cover liability, as an example, or a pipe breaking water. You have to have other things that surround it. But the California Fair Plan was built to basically be a policy of last resort. With all the insurance companies pulling out right now in California, there's plenty of articles out there, everyone online out there can hear or read online, that they're growing sizably, and which, in my opinion, is the right thing. You have to have a policy like this of last resort. It needs to be functioning and funded properly. It's a policy that goes up to total, remember, as we educate everybody, the total insurance value is $3 million. There's a problem with it, and this is a really scary stat. I'm a numbers guy. Everyone out there should probably realize I'll talk numbers all day. There's an estimation as much as 90% of you out there that are listening right now that are on the California Fair Plan are going to fail a requirement that was changed 2 years ago. The requirement requires you to be insured to value within 80%, and the key word, which is scary, is at the time of loss, not when you bought the policy, not when the policy renewed, but after the house burns. They go out there and survey your house, and if you don't have enough coverage, it reverts to what's called actual cash value, which is depreciation. So as I mentioned to you a second ago, they estimate as much as 90% of you out there that are on the Fair Plan right now don't have the proper coverage, are going to fail that clause.
So if somebody is a homeowner, do they directly call you? Like, how does it work if somebody's like...
we do a little bit of retail stuff. I work with a lot of great realtors, and those out there didn't see, I put my hand out, I was pointing at Jessica, by the way. And so,
thanks, Robert.
And so I always forget when we're doing a podcast, I'm pointing and people go,
yeah, we have a YouTube.
Oh, you got the YouTube. Oh, perfect.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
There you go. Thank you. So those on YouTube saw me do that whole thing at that point, the fingers pointing. Really, what it was, I would say is right now they really need to get actively involved. Those that are working with their insurance, this is not a time to be an ostrich. and put your head in the sand. You need to be out in front. I think there are great brokers throughout California. I think there's, like any field, there's some great ones and there's some ones that are not so great. Really being active if you're on the California Fair Plan, but it's a tough thing because rates are going up right now. The California Fair Plan is taking rates. And so a lot of consumers want to do the ostrich effect. They see the rate goes up. They don't want to talk about increasing their coverages because it increases price. But if you don't do it and you fail that clause, you might think you have $1 million of coverage with the California Fair Plan and get paid little or nothing. And so it's really important. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, and obviously it's easy for me to be in the insurance world, right? Make sure you're insured to value. It's like I sound very old and cheesy about it, but right now there is so many problems that are going on we're trying to fix. This is a problem that I use the word we need to be all active. Like the new program, you saw me speak when I was at your office at the agency, Beverly Hills. One of the speeches, and I get teased about it all the time, is I make it seem like it's almost like a George Patton speech. We're in this together, and we're going to do this. And I use the word we because no one person, no one thing's going to make the change to fix this. No one wants to see rates continue to skyrocket. And if we don't make these changes, what are similar to the new program we launched, we're going to continue to see rates not go up a couple percent. We're going to see 30, 40, 100%, 200%, or even worse, cancellations. We got to fix it.
So I want to role play in 2 scenarios, but I want it to be so simple. Like
I'm going to go basic.
Extremely basic.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the first one.
I love this, by the way. It's a good test for me.
The first one is I'm the agent.
Yep.
I'm the agent, and you're the broker.
Yep.
Okay. What is the conversation that you are having with the agent? As simple, because this will then go into our second little role play. What is the most simplified way that you share to the agent that they can then deliver?
Got it. So very first thing I do with agents that, again, great agents, will do when they have a client that's going into escrow, the very thing that we do immediately is we run pricing immediately for different quotes, different carriers.
Even if they're writing an offer, can they call you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We actually recommend it.
Okay. Well,
and
I
the reason for it is
call my home insurance.
Well, you need to do it prior
broker.
to. Please is out there. If you're a realtor, don't wait till you go into escrow. If you're a listing agent, please get examples. We do this for listing agents throughout California all the time. We're running what the scenarios are so we can get quotes back. Quotes are taking as much as 2 weeks.
Simple, Robert.
Well, no, I mean, quotes are taking 2 weeks to come back.
Yeah.
So what we will do for listing agents is we will run quotes in advance so that when that house goes into escrow, we can do an email to the buyer's agent showing the insurability and the cost. That's a huge thing in that scenario. Whether you're the buyer's agent or the listing agent, having the pricing in advance is the most important thing. I think it's crazy right now because in the real estate world, correct me if I'm wrong, you hear the horror stories of everyone having the last minute problem with insurance and escrow's crashing and everyone's scrambling. Or that buyer that decided to wait until 2 days before the escrow to see if they get insurance. It's become so important that California Association of Realtors, is doing a contract change to split insurance off as a contingency. So I think it's crazy. If you properly plan for something, you can win any fight. So to answer to your question, you really need to make sure that you have the quotes and pricing before escrow, if it's possible. If you're a listing agent, that's great. But on the buyer side, it's immediate. It's immediate.
And what is the conversation now, the second of this question, what is the conversation that the agent, now I'm still the agent or excuse me, let's say that you're the agent and I'm the client. What is the conversation now?
If I'm the realtor at this point?
And talking to the client. Their client.
I again, no ostrich effect. I guess I use that probably a little too often, putting head in the sand. One of the things all agents should do out there right now, if you're a real estate professional, is you don't ever send a quote across to anybody. That's what the insurance people do. We do this all the time. you would have an introduction. I have agents throughout California that will send us, hey, Robert, copied on the email is my client, blah, blah, blah. Can you please reply all with what you found? If your client has an insurance and they've worked with for 30 years, great, go there, but at least know that this is here.
Yeah.
Know that it's here.
Yeah, I've thought of that in certain ways. I've told clients to just write an offer, even if it's really low or really high, just to open up a conversation.
Thank you.
Just open up a conversation.
With the insurance side of it is it's gotten so narrow, the number of companies that are out there right now. There's some houses might have only 1-2 options. Mm-hmm. I remember I joke around about the glory days where you have, there could be 100 companies pricing, so right now we're in a very difficult market. Mm-hmm. Making sure you're out in front of it is the most important thing any real estate professional should have right now.
I mean, that's why I think sometimes people should always be a form of creating content, that they're creating information for people to listen to. Absolutely. I like to listen to different types of YouTubers throughout the week, whether it's a mindset or beauty or wellness or real estate. I'm always watching something with marketing with real estate. And I was watching something 2-3 days ago, and this woman was saying 3 things that realtors should prioritize. One of them is your mindset. The other one was being organized, organizing how you want your business to be. And the other one was developing better communication skills. Absolutely. Because your client, the people that you're working, the insurance broker, the escrow person, the seller's agent, the buyer's agent, whatever side of the transaction that you're on, especially with your clients, because it's a relationship, and your communication helps to strengthen that relationship. And I think sometimes people have that fear. They don't want to have that uncomfortable conversation, but you can overcome so many things.
Oh, absolutely.
By having that conversation.
Getting out in front.
Yeah.
Don't let I would say no one wins when it's not, when you have an insurance problem and it's not discussed. Yeah. And then you've got your buyer, if you represent the buyer, upset, and everyone's upset. I'm not in your world. I always joke around I say insurance is like cousins with real estate. We're close enough family, but still like cousins. If I was your lieutenant working on your team, I would never, ever, if I was doing a listing, I would never, ever let anybody go into an escrow with my client or our client unless the buyer's agent already has a copy of the insurance from an insurance broker, and making sure that they know that's where this is. Mm-hmm. Because I always joke with you heard me say this in our meeting. Mm-hmm. I go, by show of hands, how many of you get paid by opening escrow? And I always go like this with my hand. Mm-hmm. That's me throwing my hand up, though, if everyone see. Mm-hmm. And every so often I'll catch somebody that raises their hand. They're not thinking about stuff. But it's so true. Yeah. We're building things up. And to your point, the communication of what's going on with insurance is really important right now. Mm-hmm. And making sure you safeguard your client is the number one thing I believe every real estate professional, whether you're the listing agent or whether you are the buyer's agent, you need to represent your client. Having that information out there is just so important. And insurance has become a really big cog of this. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously it can affect ratios. I'm not a mortgage broker, but I know it's a part of qualifying for loans and things of that nature. So making sure you have these things in place takes out the vibration. When I talked about the program we launched, the number one thing I would talk to big reinsurance companies and insurance executives is that we're building this to take the vibration out of insurance. Doesn't matter if it's real estate, doesn't matter if you're in any field. Having vibration is a dangerous thing. If you're a race car driver, vibrations will make you flip your car. So taking out the bumps, the vibration of an industry is the most important thing to do. And so kind of that's the mantra I would say over and over again, take the vibration out. Why anybody that's in real estate allows insurance to be the problem of an escrow or trying to close still baffles me. Yeah. It really does.
And on the subject of communication, I heard this agent say before that he would say to his clients, would you rather hear what you want to hear or would you rather hear the truth?
Thank you. That's a
it's
great
like,
saying. I
was
like
like,
that.
oh, I love that.
I love that. I'm gonna steal that one, by the way.
I love that. Yeah,
I
I
steal
love
that
that.
one.
I mean, I love how you're so passionate about insurance. Like you have a barbecue business.
Yes.
How
well, not
do
a
you
business. Not a business.
Oh, it's not a business.
Not
Sorry.
a business. It's okay, but it's a
Not
fun
open
thing.
for hiring.
Not open for hire. I get asked that. It's a tough place to be in California, but what's great about it is I do a lot of nonprofit though. I will work with different nonprofit groups.
Oh, that's cool.
It's cool, and obviously I bribe realtors with it. It's a lot of fun because it's just a lot of great things. And if you're on there and want to see all the crazy barbecue, I have a really terrible Instagram. It's called so the @ symbol BOB.B.QUE. So it's barbecue.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
What's a tip for something when you're cooking your brisket?
Oh, brisket's a fun one. Actually, the one I love doing now, I love making this Asian infused sea bass because I just think it's so incredible. It's a simple one for those that are doing this on the smoking side, but because brisket is like in the college terms, it's
8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours.
Well, when I did the one for your office,
Yeah.
it went on at 8:00 at night. I didn't pull it off until 7 or 8 o'clock the next morning. So it's
wow.
a long time.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great things, but brisket's a lot of fun. I've always made my own dry rubs, which are great.
Oh, wow.
And just really having fun with it. But that Asian fused sea bass is such a great thing. It's simple recipes. It's great sea bass with skin on. It's mixing soy sauce, low sodium soy, and sesame oil, and finishing it with, as dumb as it sounds, with an everything seasoning, and just on the top and smoking it, and it's out of this world.
At a smoker, you have to have a smoker. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I have more attorney friends now in my world buy smokers and they want to do have me do classes 101 on how to use a Traeger smoker or whichever one they're using just to have fun making different things.
Oh my God, I love that.
It's just a lot of fun.
What do you cook your brisket in?
Actually the brisket's just on a smoker. I'm a dry rub guy.
Oh.
I'm a dry rub guy. And so it's a dry rub. It's really, brisket gets kind of complicated because it's really about trimming the brisket properly and making sure you set up for timing wise. And there's a whole thing about crutching where you wrap it in tin foil and beach towels and how it has to set up in a cooler and how it comes out. And it's just all the things that I learned years ago, in Texas with friends. And so it's just a lot of great things.
That's cool. There's the Texas thing.
You start talking about barbecue. I think I start sliding that way a little bit. I think the draw starts to show up.
I love that. I like to ask all my guests 3 questions before they leave me, and they can always come back. What is a non-negotiable in your morning routine that sets you up for the day?
A non-negotiable, I would jokingly say is my workout. I love. It's the 1 hour of the day. I don't answer emails. I don't take phone calls. It's my 1 hour of doing cardio. I get on an elliptical, and I just zone out. And that's kind of like I had shoulder surgery early part of January. I had major reconstructive surgery on my shoulder. My business partners and all of my team were begging the doctor to let me go back to the gym and just do the elliptical because missing that was a big part of what was my mindset of setting up today. It kind of dialed me in where not having it kind of affects me. Yeah,
I understand that. What is a piece of advice or suggestion you can offer to someone, whether with their business, their relationship, or maybe with their cooking?
I'll see if you let me do cooking, I'll be here and it'll be a lot longer podcast. So it's a lot of fun. I just, again, in business, I have always had the mantra of not just simply making sure you continue on. Don't believe it's a no. When we built this WOWS program, it's a really kind of funny story. The whole world told me there's no way I could build it, that there's no way the industry would do it. And I would never be able to prove from an analytics standpoint that I'm correct on how to change. And we've won every battle, every fight, and we're going to affect change. So realize that as in the business world, just because things are done a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way. And if you've got that ability to change it, do it.
I live by this mantra, and it's because of a client that I had, because I met Jessica Chastain, and he was like, "Did you tell her what you did?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take."
That's a great. See, you are a sports fan.
And no, I'm not. I'm a quote.
I'm gonna tease you. That's a sports quote right there.
Ever since that day, I've had this thing in the back of my head where it's like, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So sometimes when I don't want to go up to someone to introduce myself, I get like this. I overcome it because I'm just like, oh, I want to connect to this person. And I say to myself, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's
and
a
I just
great
go
saying.
right up. I just go right up and I'm like,
that's
I
a
am
great-
so-and-so. Nice to meet you.
It's a great saying.
Yeah.
It's a great mantra, actually.
It's my favorite.
I don't blame you on that
What
one.
are 3 qualities about yourself peers would say about you?
One is that I would almost say is a quality, and it could be a negative, is that I don't shut down. I don't quit. I'm a lot of times 4 or 5 in the morning start, and I go until 10 o'clock at night. I was wearing everybody out in London. I mentioned the company CJ Coleman, and my business partners were having fun teasing them when we were on a Zoom meeting the following week, asking them if they've recovered from dealing with me while I was over there.
Oh, that's funny.
Just because the pace and the way I go. I would also say that everyone talks about the fact that the knowledge that I get into conversations, and one of the greatest. The 2 things when I was in London, and I geek out over this, was for those that wanted to see, there's a lot of great things to see. I wanted to see the Lloyd's building, because Lloyd's of London is like almost the start of insurance in my opinion.
Oh, cool.
And so to be able to go to the building, I got to meet the head reinsurance for the California Fair Plan. Okay, I've known about him for years.
Oh, that's cool.
And to have a meeting and be able to sit down and go toe to toe and having your knowledge tested. That was almost like the very beginning was he almost vetted me like, does he know what we do? And so a 5-minute conversation meeting became a 45-minute meeting. And so things like that. I'd say the third thing is being able to really, really change views, meaning I can overturn things and change directions in insurance that others can't do. And be able to get people to go with me in the direction to fix. So I would say those are the 3 things.
And he's super nice.
Aw.
He's super nice, man. Super nice.
I don't know. I've got a tough 17-year-old that might disagree with you. She's pretty rough.
Robert, thank you so much. Where can people find
honored.
you? Plug yourself.
Robert Feldman, you can get WOWS, WOWS. Everyone always forgets the S. So WOWSinsurance.com. My email is robert@wowsinsurance.com.
Thank you so much for being here. You guys can follow me at Jessica J. Fury and subscribe, follow the podcast. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Thank you.